Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
What's up, guys?
How are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good, dude. I love that he got out of the crate.
Yeah, he's not crated yet, but he's working on it. To your listeners, amongst the new things I have during the pandemic is a Great Dane puppy, and he's testing me right now. He will find the crate.
What's the size they're at when they're puppies? Are they fully, like, how big do they get?
He's 6 months old, and I just had him weighed today because he had to take his medication. They go by weight.
Oh.
He's 98.9 pounds.
Wow.
So they're predicting he's going to be about 160 at full grown.
There's my neighbors have a Great Dane. I love this dog, but every now and again I'll go for like a run around the neighborhood, and one point he got out. I don't even know how, but I was like, out of my peripheral vision, I just saw this, like, all lanky, just this giant dog, like, running down the street. That was my first encounter with him. And like, I just stopped because I didn't want him to keep going or whatever. So I stopped, but he got like, I'm like 5'4", and he got like literally like nose to nose with me. And I'm like, what am I stopping for your protection for? Like,
yeah, he was fine.
Yeah,
the funny thing is, and I'm sorry, but they can reach everything, so that's why I got to move shit out of it.
Oh yeah, no, it's all right.
But when they run, it's almost like a gallop, like a horse.
Yes.
When they and you can hear them and see them. But here's the thing about Great Danes: the biggest danger is they will lick and slobber you to death. They have no aggression, no anger. They're just giant, friendly dogs, and they don't really realize how big they are, which people told me, but now that he's growing, I see what they mean. Like, he really doesn't understand. The funniest thing that he does, he's gotten to where he can sit on a couch like a human.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he can sit with his butt on the couch and his feet on the ground. It's really pretty hilarious. And they're funny dogs. They're pretty cool. But this is one of the rare times he's awake. They sleep they sleep 16 hours a day. They sleep all the time.
Wow.
And he's awake right now, because now would be annoying. Like, now would be a good time to sleep because I got things to do. Right?
I know what you mean. I've got a cat, and during this whole thing, we've all been doing Zoom shows, interviews, comedy shit online or whatever. And a couple times I was actually grateful that he was being annoying, because he would come in during the middle of a thing and like walk across my computer and shut it off. And I'd be like, and that's the end of that Zoom show. Like, that's how that goes. I love when animals sit like humans. My cat, every now and again, I'll come home and I have a chair, like an armchair or whatever, and it's facing this way. So when I open the front door, it's just like this. And one day I came home and he was sitting with his arm, for whatever reason, his paw like on the chair like a person, and just turned and looked at me, and I was like, that's the scariest fucking shit.
So now you know what's going on when you're not home.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, did I interrupt something? Are you? That's fucking weird as shit. How did you make it through the pandemic? Obviously, you made it through fine, but like, were you one of those people who was going nuts not being on stage?
Well, I quickly adapted to the Zoom shows, right? Because it was just Zoom and streaming and whatever else was just what it was going to be. Right. So I did those regularly. I got on stage, it was kind of like in your open mic days, right? Where it was like, well, Wednesday nights, there's a rooftop downtown. And then every other Saturday, there's a beach. There's 2 drive-ins in the parking lot. And it was just doing all of that stuff. So it wasn't like working, but it was enough to, I don't know, get a little bit of the feel, The biggest change that I noticed was working during the day instead of at night.
Yeah.
That was a big change to be funny at 11 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. And then 8 o'clock at night, you're like, okay, time to turn on the TV. There's nothing going on. Right. So that was odd. But other than that, I mean, it wasn't good for anybody, unless you have mailbox money. I think Joe Rogan was the only guy who profited during the pandemic, right?
I know.
Joe did all right.
Yeah,
but
Joe and Jeff Bezos did great.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I was having trouble with the daytime Zoom stuff too, because as a comic you wake up at night. So like it would be like 11 o'clock in the afternoon. I would do some kind of like, I don't know if you did any of the Bonfire Live stuff or whatever that they had, that organization, but I did some of that shit. And then like 9 o'clock would turn around and I'd be like looking at anybody I could talk to, like, hey, where you from? How you doing? Like, and then my family's like,
we're doing that street corner thing, and I guess it worked for some. I didn't do any of those, but I certainly did more outdoor shows than I needed to, but I mean, where else were you going to work? That was the thing. And then there were a couple of live things, Tampa, St. Louis, Portland.
Right.
I did those where they were clubs. Florida, of course, had no rules, and the other places were going with limited capacity, but it was just enough to keep you going, I guess. But I will tell you that one thing I learned during the pandemic, I enjoyed the quiet.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now I'm adjusting to going back. And the bad thing is that it got comfortable, and it was like, wait a minute, what am I chasing?
Yes.
You sometimes it's like, wait a minute, like, so I know what I'm chasing. I'm chasing a Great Dane. Get your ass off of there. Off. The hell is wrong with you? Get off.
Like he's like it's still daylight, right? We could be outside right now, and you're talking to this idiot. Yeah. It's funny that you said that too, because I've been wondering. I was talking to Judy Gold, and we both said the same thing. We're in some kind of post-pandemic sort of funk, where like I feel I did get comfortable, with, like you said, it's a good way to put it when you said with the quiet. And then now it seems like, does it seem like there's more noise than ever now, where you're like, was it always like this? Because it seems like there's something fucking weird going on at every bar, every store, now there's like, you know what it is? It's like all the outdoor stuff is still going on, as well as now all the indoor stuff is still going on. So we didn't lose anything that was going on during the pandemic. We just gained more rooms where I won't be getting paid in.
Yeah, and the audiences have kind of a pent-up excitement.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I noticed in the clubs. And then just in the world, people have a pent-up, like, wait, I'm out. I want to, I think there is more energy right now. I saw something on the news about like how crowded the airports are, and the airlines can't keep up with the demand because people want to travel. And I'm like,
wow.
Well, fucking hire your people back. Like, there's no problem with the airlines. Spend the money that you took from the government during the pandemic, hire your employees back, and take care of your customers. Their problem is like, wait a minute, they're interfering with our bonuses.
Yeah.
Some executive that's making $12 million a year is like, wait, I might not get 14 million this year if I hire, 100 people at a decent wage. I mean, that whole thing about no workers, right, it's all bullshit. It's like, well, just pay people and they'll come to work. That's
It's crazy. They have to choose between their fifth yacht and actually making sure people have dinner on the table. It's a real tough choice for them to make. I'm kind of enjoying, and I know Tom and I have talked about this before, but I know this is somewhat sadistic, but I am kind of enjoying watching like restaurant workers not go back and restaurant owners suffer because they refuse to pay them. It's like, this is what we said was going to happen. And you said if they didn't like it, to find another job. Well, guess what, motherfucker? They found another job, like, or they're going somewhere else.
Yeah, we've become, they're doing away with the middle class, right? This has been, they've been working on this. When I say that, by they, I mean Republicans.
Yes, of course.
Have been working on this since the Reagan era. The trickle down ain't trickling down.
Nope.
And, at some point, working people are like, and they're like, people are saying, why am I working if I can't pay a bill? It's like, yeah, exactly. I mean, for years, there were Walmart employees who were getting food stamps, right? So in effect, the government was subsidizing Walmart.
Right.
And it's like with each of the family being worth, I don't know, 10, 20 billion dollars. See, that's the thing I never understood. They all yell socialism. It's funny how many people, living in a trailer with no heat are yelling about socialism. But
right.
Yeah.
But the thing, and again, we were just having this talk, Henry Ford, listen, there was a lot of negatives about Henry Ford, but one thing he said that was really smart. He said, you got to pay them enough to buy the cars.
Wow. That's great.
That's a great
right.
quote.
And this is something that they've all lost. Like you to keep society functioning, you have to pay people enough. And people aren't lazy. I think people want to work, but when they realize, like, I'm killing myself and I'm getting nowhere on this treadmill.
Yeah.
And they did find out that unemployment, it's like, well, if I'm going to be broke, I'll be home. And if you pay me enough to go to work, it's not, people aren't lazy. They want to support their family or whatever, but they also want a piece. Jeff Bezos, I don't think if Jeff Bezos had, I don't know, 150 billion, like, I don't know, what can you buy with 170 billion that you can't buy with 150 billion? What is that?
So, exactly. But I don't know if you know this, man. And this, if you really want to get pissed off, there's a website you can go to called Spend Bill Gates Money. And it's literally like there's like a bunch of little squares, and each one has like airport, Miami Dolphins, whatever it is, and you can click on shit, and his money goes down in the account. You can buy fucking everything without him basically making a dent in what he actually is worth. And it's just sickening to think that he can own 15 airports, I don't know how many football leagues, mansions, yachts, and it just goes on and on.
Well, one thing I'll say about Bill Gates, that one of the reasons I'm not as mad as him, at least he provided something. Like, he built Microsoft. He did something.
And even the seed bank.
Hedge fund guys, these hedge fund guys do nothing but feed off of the system like leeches, right? Buy a company, bankrupt it, do this, do that. And they don't provide anything. At least he can say, hey, listen, I computerized the world. Right. So so there's that.
Yeah, I don't get the anger at all. But like, I understand the disproportionate amount of money and stuff like that. But when I at least see them, like, no, who else was going to build a seed bank in the fucking Arctic? You know what I mean? Who else is thinking that far ahead? So I usually go like, well, at least he's fucking doing something. But then these other guys, like Musk, I go in between him driving me crazy and not. Like, on one hand, I think, like, has anybody seen a movie? This is exactly what an evil genius looks like before he builds death robots. On the other hand, I'm like, I enjoy that at least somebody is talking about exploring space more than the government's willing to fund NASA. And even if it is a kind of I don't know what the downside is. He could wind up killing us all, or I think that the people that he's going to send to Mars are on a death trip. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't fucking care.
Musk, I still don't know about. I mean, you had this whole cryptocurrency thing that he was involved in. It's like, if you were a con man, you'd be in jail for this, right?
Absolutely.
It's a strange. They live above the law. They honestly live above the law. And now we're finding out they don't pay taxes at all. And that's another thing that it's like, look, shut down the loopholes. Stop it. I mean, pay some taxes. I'll tell you the thing about Rich that was funny to me. So I'm a big fan of the LA Clippers, right? Because I love lost causes. So when Steve Ballmer, who was like the retired CEO of the Clippers, there was a bidding war on the team, right? So the bidding was at like 1.4 billion, and he just said, screw it, I'll pay 2 billion. And they were like, thank you, bidding's over. He got the team. And he did that in like May, right? Yeah. And by October, when the season started, he had made the 2 billion back. Like he was like, yeah, take this. It's my summer money that
yeah.
But it's that kind of thing. It's like, look, this is his hobby. Like, I was watching when they were playing the Mavericks, they showed him and Mark Cuban in the stands, and I was like, so this is what billionaires do for fun. Let's each buy a basketball team and have them play against each other. Like, this is just billionaire fun. you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it is crazy what people do. Like at least celebrities have the balls to do something completely insane, like wear vials of blood around their neck or fuck it, like do something nutty. But when you see like those billionaires and they're just buying the shit that we enjoy, and you're like, oh, that's so weird. Like when they own their own airline suddenly, or island, or wherever else, you're like, wow, they just have fuck you money, and we're like struggling. Do you think there's going to be a point where people actually like the fact? I never understood like I live in New Jersey, right, and we all hate the toll system. It doesn't happen in LA, you know what I mean? It didn't happen in Arizona for the longest time, but East Coast fucking hates the toll system. I don't understand why people just don't go, I'm not paying this anymore. Nobody likes it. Nobody believes it pays for anything anymore. And I know it's anarchist to say it, but why don't we all just go through? Do you think there's going to be a point where people go, these people don't pay their fucking taxes, I'm done? Like, what if we all just decided, fuck it?
I really don't know, but I think, they're always worried about this saying, oh, it's going to be a racial riot or it's going to be this or that. And I think if it's going to be economic, I think you push people. So for like now, people can't afford homes. Right. They just can't afford. I mean, especially here, I'm in LA, in New York, LA and San Francisco.
Yeah.
Unless you're in tech or like, entertainment, like I tell everyone, this is a lottery business we're in, right? This entertainment business. You get the right break, you make some money. So I was lucky enough when I made a little money, I bought a house and I got in, but again, you're pushing people, you see the tents all over. And at some point, I think people are going to snap. And I don't know what's going to happen. A friend of mine, and this is a businessman, very smart, very successful. I don't know. Yeah. You have any friends where you don't really know how rich they are?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how rich he is. He might have $10 million. He might have $100 million. I don't know, but I know he's got a lot of money in this and that. And he was saying something that was really, he said, this two-party system, he's like, more and more, I just think they're in it together. The whole thing is rigged. Like you look at McConnell and Pelosi, they've been going against each other for 3 presidential administrations, but nothing has really changed. And you have the appearance of a fight, but then things kind of stay the same. And they're not like Chris Rock's old joke with doctors, like there ain't no money in the cure. The money's in the comeback.
That's the truth.
And in politics, there's no money in the solution.
Right.
That is the truth.
There's no profit in solving people's problems or even giving a shit about people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the
more
great
and
lie
more
is that progress. The great lie I was going to say is that progress is slow. And I think you're right on the money. I don't think it's slow. I think they hold it back.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways it's slow. Like when Barack Obama said it's like turning an aircraft carrier, I get that. You're not going to do everything at once.
Right.
But things need to move. But the other thing that's fascinating, and we dealt with this with the economy, with the pandemic, how do you deal with these people who vote against their own interests? How many people who refuse to wear a mask died or their family died or something? And it was like, and now they're refusing the vaccine, because your keys will stick to your forehead, which is a absolute medical fact and a reason to turn down any. But when you have people believe this, right, and we're talking millions of people, we're not talking 50 people, millions of people believe that. Like the people who say Bill Gates is tracking them, I'm like, the man has over $100 billion. Why would he? At what point do you think he's like, where's Keith at? I want to know. Let me tell you something. Bill Gates has $100 billion. If he wants to know where I'm at, I will go to his house. I'll be, I'm right here. Bill. How you doing? Well, I heard you were looking for me. Here I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Give me $1 million. You'll never notice it. You'll never notice it. And I'll never come back.
Until you call.
Right. Until you call again.
Yeah. Like the guy can't afford his own mini drones or whatever the fuck he's got working on to find some lunatic.
It's so, but with these people and their voting, and you see these Marjorie Taylor Greens and the one out of Colorado, Boebert or whatever, like they said, who thought who thought we'd look back in Sarah Palin and say, she wasn't that bad.
Yep. And I have a bad feeling we're going to look back at Trump in the same way. I have a feeling when there's somebody who doesn't tweet and is just as like-minded as he is, it's going to be bad.
To your point, I feel like to your point, I think the way you're saying they're both on that same team, when I look at it and I see people that work as firemen or cops or sanitation, and they're super like right, and they're like anti-socialism, and I'm like, you work in a social structure. And then you see people that are pure capitalists, right, that are heads of banks, and they push super left, and you're like, but aren't you fighting against your own cause? It's like they trick everybody. I feel like it's more rigged than that Tyson fight that they just had, where it was like, all right, it went to 12 rounds, and we're gonna call it a draw. So no way. I don't know.
I don't know how you communicate with people who vote against their own interests, and they're so vested in that.
Yeah,
it's like, I hate unions. Like, you're underpaid with zero benefits. You are the reason unions were invented in the early 1900s, when they had those factory sweatshops and all. Like, and here you are, anti-union. Like, I don't know how you help people like that. I don't know what you say to them that's going to get through, and they're going to be like, oh wait, I don't know.
I don't know either. Maybe, and I feel like, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, World War II brought the country together, right? Like, maybe we truly do need to be attacked by aliens from outer space for everyone to put down their own little personal interests and say, wait a minute, as a group, we deserve more. But, Trump said a lot of ridiculous things, but when they said there were people from outer space, and someone said, yeah, and they looked at our planet and said, no, I believe that. I believe the aliens were like, no, we'll give them another 1,000 years and come back.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel you, man. I feel the same kind of way. And I love what you said before about people wanting to work, because I always say the same thing too, but they just want to be respected in their work. And I always use this analogy because I don't know if you know why they used to have cats on ships back in the day, or how they wound up being on ships or whatever. It was to catch the mice, to kill the rats.
Yeah, there were rats all over the ships. Yeah. Right.
But I don't know if you know the reason how cat food got started was they brought all these cats on the ships to kill the rats, and they never fed them because they thought that starving them would make them better hunters. But the cats never caught the rats. And then they developed food for cats, and they realized if you feed them, they'll fucking work. That's the analogy I like to use. It's like, don't starve people and don't make people miserable and withhold healthcare and pay and benefits. Give them what they need and they'll work hard for you.
Yeah, and the examples are the smaller European countries where those kind of things work, where, the Norways and the Swedens and places like that, where it's like, yeah, we pay people. They don't worry about the cost of healthcare. They get a month off every year. Yeah. And they actually work. Like IKEA, it works. Like, we laugh at it, but it works.
Right.
And, so they're doing something right. Or even Canada, where I love, like, I'm waiting for global warming to kick in and make it livable. And then I'm on my way. As soon as this global warming thing kicks in, I'm heading to Winnipeg. I'm telling you, I love Canada. Canadians are great people. And, when the pandemic started, I have a friend who lives in Toronto, and he said the government just said, okay, we're going to give everyone $1,000 a month just to keep the economy going, so that they'll spend money. They'll go to, we were talking earlier about the restaurants or the whatever little stores and stuff like that. And they were like, the government was like, we'll figure out how to pay for it later, but we have to keep the country rolling, And then here we had people who literally have millions and millions of dollars saying, no, we shouldn't give them any unemployment.
Right. No, I know. Dude, but that's the thing that fucked me up about Musk, man. It made me feel like he's a piece of shit, because he was actively going on TV during that time saying that you do not want to give people aid. And he fucking found a loophole and got aid for the company during the pandemic.
Well, all of them were getting those huge government, what was it called?
I can't remember. It was
the government money to keep your business going. Like I heard that Tom Brady, right, got like $900,000 for his sports training business. And it's like, yeah, Tom, legally you're entitled to it, but you and your wife are worth $400 million.
Right.
You probably didn't need it.
Right.
And I again, I don't know. It's just such a, and yeah, if you're Elon Musk, like maybe you just sit this one out.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But like you don't have to say anything. You could just not say anything.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to get anybody to fucking be any better than they are now, whatever it is. Like, he's Elon Musk, he's untouchable. But like you just said, don't be a prick. Don't go on TV and start telling what people should and shouldn't get when you're a millionaire throwing bricks at the windows of your cars because you can afford it. Like having them break anyway. Yeah. So I was a Bernie guy, through the whole thing. I can't wrap my head around, like, Andrew Yang, I think is complete and total full of shit, dude. I don't know why I don't buy into any of his stuff. Oh, dude, I think he's kind of like him. I think he's I know, I understand the appeal. But the appeal of Andrew Yang is the same thing to me as the appeal of the dude, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name now. I hate the gay guy who was running for president.
Buttigieg?
Buttigieg, yeah,
Buttigieg, yeah. The name you always pronounce wrong. No matter how you say it, you're saying it wrong. Yes.
The dude who totally ripped off, the white guy who totally ripped off Obama's speech pattern, by the way. But like that shit, but I feel like they're the same thing. They like Buttigieg is what your grandparents would like a gay person to be. Just well-dressed, not flamboyant. That's who they'll vote for. And he's just a whiteboard. That's all he is. You know what I mean? Other Democrats get to put whatever they want on him, shove him out there because he's young. Andrew Yang, I don't know what his deal is, but I feel like that he totally twisted the universal basic income thing, because his is like, yeah, we want to give you $1,000 a month, but his healthcare plan sucks. So that fucking extra $1,000 they're going to give you is going to go towards his crappy. So you still get fucked, but no one looks into it. Bernie was the only one that made any sense to me. And I know that being a, quote unquote Bernie bro is like a death sentence to begin with. But what are your like, is there anybody that you see coming up that you feel hopeful about? Because I'm lost, dude.
See, here's the thing. It has to be, and this is the word, the dirty word that nobody can use. Mm-hmm. There has to be a compromise, right? Mm. And we've reached the point that any compromise is considered a loss. So I'm not as far left as Bernie. I get some of what Bernie says, but and it's not that the idea isn't good. It's that, no, that's never going to happen. Like Americans are never going to go for that. So come back toward the middle, and there's probably a compromise. Like going back to Hillary Clinton, right? And the Democrats totally blew it on this. It was like, listen, I don't care how much you hate Hillary. It was about the Supreme Court. Oh, and the Democrats didn't push the Supreme, and now you've got this ridiculous right-wing Supreme Court, and and that was the compromise, right? So the Bernie people who absolutely refused to vote for Hillary, it was like, and then they blew it. And I'm not blaming the Bernie people. I'm just saying that this is where we run into the problem of no compromise, right? So now you have Bernie has some good ideas. Elizabeth Warren had some great ideas, especially about the economy. Her banking regulations, and Elizabeth Warren was like, she was like, put these bastards in jail. You start putting bank CEOs in jail, you watch how fast banking cleans up. Again, this is an old Carlin joke. Like, street drug dealers, they don't mind going to jail. Bankers, they're scared as fuck of going to jail. So there has to be some kind of compromise. Who is that person? Right. I don't know. I don't know who can bring them together. Some of what Biden's doing is good. One thing I love about Biden is I don't hear from Biden. I like that as a president. I don't need to hear from you every day. Go do some presidential shit.
You know what I love? They did it at a press conference, and somebody was trying to bait him for whatever, and he goes, they were like, Mr. President, what do you think of what the Republicans think about whatever, right? And he just went, man, I don't know what the Republicans are thinking. Thank you for your time. And then just walked off. And I was like,
yeah.
Or
when he was at the ice cream place, and he was like, I'm just going to have some ice cream. And it was like, it's really a polite fuck you, right? It's like, I'm not falling for your game.
Yeah.
And the thing about Buttigieg, one thing I love about him, he goes on Fox News and he owns them.
He does.
Repeatedly, because they're not that smart. They're very angry, but they're not that smart. And this is where you talk about the Democrats shooting themselves in the foot. They destroyed Al Franken. It was like, that was your spokesman.
Gillibrand, man.
You're like, listen, from now on, Al Franken is going to do all of our speeches. We're not going to let anyone else talk but Al Franken, because he's smarter than you and he's funnier than you. And by the time you realized he called you an asshole, the press conference is over. You don't even realize how he took you apart, So,
it's insane that went through. Democrats love to shoot themselves in the face.
Absolutely.
And Gillibrand just missed that vote on the Senate. Like, how the fuck do you go on about how much you care about women and miss that last? It's insane to me. That shit just drives me crazy too. The Buttigieg thing is absolutely dead on, though. You're right. He has composure enough in those interviews, and I don't know what it is, man, but somebody should take a lesson from him, because he doesn't let Fox News guys frustrate him. I never see him get angry. I just see him stay totally chill and own the shit out of them, and it's wild.
Well, Jon Stewart said when he used to go up against O'Reilly, he would like study up so he was ready for any question. He was like, I just had to have all the answers. So anything they tried, I knew what they were talking about. And that's the way to do it. But when you talk about what the Democratic Party's doing, it's the Republicans pick one simple thing and they push that through, like, we're going to keep our guns, or we're going to, ban abortion, or we're going to hate black people. And you can throw in the Mexicans and the gays. But the Democrats are all over, and it's like, you can't be everything to everybody. Just work on the people, like, we're going to help working class people, and then just do that. Have you ever seen the European model? The way they teach history to their like college, high school level people is basically, it's weird, dude. And I was looking it up, and because how, like, on our end, you've got Bernie as the guy on the far left, then it's kind of like Liz Warren, and then it's all the other Democrats are a little towards the center left, and Obama's in there, and then it's Republicans, and then towards the Trump side, it's tipping off. Like, it's like, or not tipping up, but it's like in the conservative side. In the European side, it's Bernie's actually in the middle of the left. Everybody else is kind of in the middle, conservative to the, like, right in the middle. It's like Republicans are off of it. They're like tipping off to the other side. And I feel like that's the way it is. I think that when people argue about, because I see it sometimes too, and I, to an extent, agree that the Democrats can be feckless, but I also realize that I think moderate classic Republicans, I guess, if you want to call them, have merged with, Democrats, and that's why they can't get anything done. There's just a lot of different, like, I feel like it's mostly what that is. And what the Republican Party is now is just pure insanity. And they've got one hive mind, and that's it. They've gone off the deep end. And the whole thing of, we're going to be the party of no. Anything you say, the response is no. Right. And when we do have an idea, it's going to be insane. They just put a handmaiden on the Supreme Court. Like, literally, she was a handmaiden. Like, that was her, it's, and the Democrats don't have any pushback, and it's like, when they're like, you're going to expand the court. It's like, yeah, we are. We're going to expand the court till we get sanity back. Like, don't deny it. Right. Explain how and why you're going to do it. Right. And you're right. In the rest of the world, our Democrats are conservative. Yeah. And our Republicans are like crazy right wing. I don't know how much you travel if you do any international stuff, but this is back when Bush got elected. I was going around and people were like, what the hell are you guys doing? How did he get, they were like, how did he get in? And then the world, when we went from Obama to Trump, that's when the world said, yeah, America no longer leads the world. They've lost their minds. They've lost Germany. What are you talking about? Because the Americans have lost their minds. Yeah. Yeah. It was weird, man. I felt like, when I started doing stand-up, it was, I started in 2005. And then I watched all my, predecessors, all you guys just crush. But I watched you do, political material, presidential material, all that other stuff. And I felt like the audience
still took it well. This is the only time, and I remember doing jokes about that kind of stuff. And then literally before the pandemic started, when there was like blood in the water, where they felt like Trump supporters felt like they were going to use. I was in Michigan, and it was like the fourth show. I was closing out. It was a great weekend, and for whatever reason, a couple tables of Trump supporters, and I literally thought this was it, like, because I had mentioned his name. I didn't even get to. I was close to the end of the whole thing. I had like 15 minutes left. I'm like, let me wrap it up. Let me do some shit. I mentioned his name, and all they started doing was chanting USA at me. And it was like the weirdest shit, because I was like, what's your point? But and then of course I went back at them, and there was like a whole thing, and they had to get removed from the, room or whatever. But that was the only time I ever felt like people attach themselves to a presidential candidate, or like in a politician, where they were willing to like fist fight you over jokes. It was weird.
Well, they had to, because they have nothing to stand on, right? They had no policy, no logic, nothing. One of the things that I would get Trumpers, one of the nice things about being black is not many Trumpers come to the show. They see my picture, they're like, he's probably not one of us. So they don't show up.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's always good when you have one of them honestly say, look, I don't agree with you, but that was funny.
Yes.
Or that's probably the best they could do. The one I had, this was hilarious. I was in what's the name of the casino? It's a comedy club. Oh, Mohegan Sun, which is a casino up in Connecticut.
Connecticut, yeah.
And I said something about Obama, because he had made a comment or a speech, and this woman in the front row starts yelling, he was a preacher, not a president. And I was like, oh, because he spoke English, he was a preacher, not. The third time she said it, this was funny. It wasn't the club security. It was the security guys from the casino, the guys in a suit with the earpiece.
Yeah.
And two of them just walked up, took her by the arms, and walked her out. They didn't say anything. They were just, and I was like, yeah, see, now, that's how they handled that, right? So after the show, this gay couple in the front row, these two guys come up to me and they say, hey, we're really sorry about our friend. And I'm like, that was your friend? Like, you're an openly gay couple, and this, like, what the hell?
Right.
I don't even know how you explain, like, how does that mind thing work? But yeah, the Trumpers, it's the herd mentality. And the funniest thing now, and it's hilarious, the defense lawyers for the insurgents from January 6th, their defense is, well, they were watching Fox News and they got caught up and went crazy like that.
Yeah.
Like your criminal defense is you were watching Fox News. It's
right.
Like, I don't know. I so wanted them to send those people to Gitmo. It's like, isn't that where we send insurgents? Can't we send them to Gitmo and treat them like they attacked the government, because that's what they did? You know?
I know, that was wild, man. I can't believe that there's like very little shit going on, and there's people defending them, and there's still some of them who believe the guy didn't even bail them out like they supposedly thought he was going to do if they went after the Capitol. What I love is that this, in spite of videos of police officers literally opening the gates for insurgents to walk through, there's like the Washington Post article that just came out that was like, hey, we figured out that police knew about some of the fucking no shit. We saw videos on day one of them doing that kind of crap. It blows me away, man. I got a good question, because this is something I'm struggling with now too. And it's basically, did you see the McDonald's Burger King thing about they're doing 40 cents? They're attacking Chick-fil-A for
they're gonna give money to
40 cents
LGBTQ, right,
for their thing. Here's where I think I'm burnt out on the last 4 years of Trump, where I understand, like, normally I would be positive about this kind of shit, where I'm like, oh cool, we got to win, you know what I mean? Like, that's nice that this company is doing it. But I also remember the last 4 years where corporations stayed relatively fucking silent because they were doing well, and I feel like I'm just pissed off about I feel like it's performative. You know, Burger King is running ads for a month against an easy competitor because Chick-fil-A supposedly, you know, they hate gay people, and now Burger King gets hey, good job. And I'm like, where were you all of Trump's reign? Where were you pushing? Where were you using your corporate money and your influence as a, you know, whatever to push back? I fucking want to, like, because I tweeted about it and I got some, you know, whatever for some praise from LGBTQ people or whatever from being like, yeah, that's a good point. And a lot of, wasn't surprised. I wasn't expecting like flack for being like, hey, can't we just have a win? And I'm like, fuck, I didn't think of it like that. But I also feel like, how long do I have to pretend that these corporations are on our side? You know what I mean? I struggle with that.
You know, and this might be a generational thing, you know, me being 20 plus years older than you or whatever, our generations are different.
Right.
Honestly, I'm okay with a company doing the right thing for the wrong reason.
Okay. All right.
Understand.
I got you.
You know, this is business for Burger King, right? And if we can give to money to the gay causes and sell more chicken sandwiches, I'm okay with that. You know, this was a thing I read recently, and this bothered me. A lot of these corporations that pledged money to Black Lives Matter and related causes last summer haven't anteed up.
Yep.
They haven't given the money that they pledged. And it's like, give the money, you know. Some companies, you know, listen, Nike hasn't always been a friend of their customers.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to put it that way. But they did step up. And they were on the right side of the Kaepernick cause and so on, you know. So it took them that long, right, to get it. You know, it's really funny. They use an old Public Enemy song called "Shut 'Em Down" in one of their commercials, and it's like, but in the song, Chuck D called out Nike back in the day. They kind of eliminated that verse where he actually called out Nike.
Yeah, I saw it.
So you know, it's. Yeah, I don't know if win is the right word, but if they're going to pump in the money, I don't care what their motivation is. Maybe they got it right this time, or maybe they're just doing it for corporate sales. But you know what? If treating gay people like they're humans, which is an amazing thing. Oh my God, they're human, you know. But if that's good for business, then okay, then let it be good for business. If that's your reason, if going, you know, going with the insane idea that Black Lives Matter,
right,
you know, is good for business, then okay, let that be your motivation. It would be like evangelical Christians actually doing something that Jesus would do. Like, wow, that would be different.
Yeah, good point.
You know, it's like, okay, that's as good a reason as any. You know, just
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I don't know what it is. I just get, you know, and I'm sure even that anybody else understands it too. You just get frustrated by that kind of shit. Because even during the pandemic, like I think we had spoken a couple times over Facebook. Because I don't know if you even but like I've sent you, you know, cartoons I've done during the thing or whatever. And I went to a couple BLM, you know, like rallies and stuff there where I was proud of, because I live in New Jersey and I live in a shore town. What was cool about that though is as many. You know, I see a lot of Blue Lives Matter flags around here, which is basically the new fucking Confederate flag. But there was like 1,500 people that came out for that rally, which made me feel like, holy Christ, I thought I was alone in this neighborhood. Because I've also gotten, like when I was 19, my friend and I got detained by Secret Service because we protested in our hometown because Bush was running for re-election and this is one of his campaign stops for some reason. And we were 19 and I was like, not in my fucking town. But we were the only two idiots there protesting. So we got, you know, his daughters came on stage and we shouted, your father's a murderer, because we're morons. And we got detained by Secret Service and we were in the paper the next day and that was exciting. But we, you know, it was super dumb. But it was cool or whatever. So we felt like, I felt a little less alone this time around, but, there was a couple of these Instagram sites, right? Where like you know, those ones that curate comedians' material.
Yeah.
So this site's doing all BLM shit, right? And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. They've got like 600,000 followers. They're sharing shit that I'm saying. They're sharing shit that other comedians are saying. This is great. And then I fucking find out that they're making money off of, you know, what they're doing or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, man. And I was like, I was so kind of like like, hey, it's cool. All these messages are getting out to 700,000 people. They're providing information. And then I find out they're fucking making money off it. So my dumb brain cannot wrestle with the capitalistic approach to activism. And I was just like, well, fuck these people. Like, or whatever. And I like, does that kind of shit bother you too? Or do you consider that to be like, hey, look, if they're going to give out the message, then
I'm not even looking at the message on that. I'll tell you something. Ripping off comedians' ideas to make money is not a new business.
yeah, that's
they've been doing this to us since cassette tapes, and probably before that, when they used to. They have those compilation cassettes that they would sell in truck stops, and then a bunch of comics. And this was before I started. A bunch of comics were like, "What? Wait a minute! They recorded our set and they're selling it." Like, people have been ripping off comedians to make money. Probably since the second comedian, I guess. If you talk to the people who are around in the 80s,
right?
Like now, I mean, the money we get from from Sirius Radio and that kind of stuff, they never got that. They never saw a penny of their material being repeated and rerun and stuff like that. So the idea that this company is going to say, hey, we're woke and we're helping out, but we're also selling ads and going to make some cash.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I'm not going to even say it's right. I'm just going to say it's what they do. Hey, I want to say something real quick, because I think we're running out of time. I don't know if we stick to an hour. If
we can go as long as we want, man. It's fine by me. I just like to try to keep it to an hour in case anybody gets bored.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So, no, when you talked about the BLM, and we're talking about Black Lives Matter, I just want to really quick talk about this new station I'm working with, KBLA 1580. Okay, it's KBLA 1580 AM in LA, but you'll be able to listen anywhere. There's going to be an app, and there's going to be a website where you can stream it through the website. So the idea is this station started by Tavis Smiley, and it's progressive talk. Yes, it's going to be, it's like progressive talk with a Black perspective. But one thing he said, I want this listenership to be like a Black Lives Matter rally. What you were talking about, how they, Black Lives Matter, everybody came to the party. There were, there were Latin people, there were the LGBTQ community, there were white people, there were people who are fed up with how Black people being treated, but more so, people were fed up with policing and the militarization of policing. Yeah. So with this station, what we're going to do, there'll be Black issues and stuff, but it's not a Black radio station. And so I want to say it's going to be progressive. It's going to be, we're in this together. I mean, like the Asian violence that they're suffering. And I read a story, and I absolutely loved it. I think it happened in Ireland. And I was saying, when is this going to happen? Right. So you have this Asian stereotype of martial arts, and they know how to fight. I was like, when is there going to be an old Asian guy who does know martial arts and knock somebody out? And I don't know if you saw the video. It happened in Ireland. This white guy was messing with this Asian shop owner, and he knocked him the fuck out. He knocked him, and it was like, this is the guy I've been waiting to see.
Oh my God, I gotta find that video.
Call it a stereotype or whatever, but it was like, if you mess with old Asians, one of them's going to be Mr. Miyagi. and it was a beautiful thing. But the point being, like, we're I'll talk about that on my show, and even when I talked about that on my website and on my podcast, right? There were people who came at me and said, what about Asians and Black people's fight back in the day of the Rodney King riots and this and that, And I was like, there's been problems with Korean stores in Black neighborhoods, but don't try to use that as a wedge to get me to support violence against Asians. Any group being discriminated against, it's still discrimination. Obviously, Black people, we have a longer history with it because it goes back to slavery and the history with that. But that doesn't make, it's not like there's a line. It's not like, well, it's okay to beat up Asians because they haven't been, enslaved in the past, or it's okay to abuse gay.
Yeah, you're not taking turns.
You know what's killing me now? This thing with the trans pronouns. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So trans people are giving you a pronoun, and all these right wingers are complaining. And it's like, you said you didn't know what to call them. You said you didn't know if this is a man or woman. So they're telling you, call me she, call me he. And now you're mad about that. Like you actually said, I don't know what to call you. And they were like, this is what you call me. Well, I don't want to call you. Well, what more do you want? What else? It's like all we did was exactly what you asked for, you know? So yeah, I'm looking forward to this station. I'm hoping there's a lot of activity and calls. And
cool. Are you guys gonna have guests on? Like, what's the theme? What's the theme
I'm gonna have guests. It's gonna be talk radio. I'm gonna have guests. I'm gonna have comics, politicians, and any authors, anyone I can get who's willing to talk to me, I'll talk to. And the only thing I'm not gonna do is I'm not gonna turn into a AM right-wing station where I'm yelling at somebody for 15 minutes. I just don't. That thing is done. I do not want to get into that. I don't want it to be that. You know, nothing. That's just theater, right? It's nothing.
Yeah.
And it's weird too. If you've talked to some of those people outside of it, they're still yelling. I'm like, you're not on air right now, right? I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, it's always weird. Congratulations, man. That's fantastic. I can't wait to listen to that because that's going to be incredible.
Yeah, we launch on June 19th, and which is a Saturday, and then they'll have a weekend promo shows and this and that, and then the actual launch of all the shows is on Monday the 21st. So to all your people,
great was
lean in.
Did you finally feel like what did you feel when they finally acknowledged the June 19th thing? The Juneteenth, was it like a about time sort of feeling, or did you feel anything towards it, or were you just like, great, let's move on to the next thing?
No, the hard thing with the 1619 Project and critical race theory and everything about that is the pushback against the truth. That's the hard thing. I don't know if you know the story of Bruce's Beach. Do you know the story about this?
No.
So there's a beach, and it was Manhattan Beach. And in the early 1900s, I think around 1912 or something like that, a black family bought a little section of beach, and they set up like a cafeteria, a cafe, and then a couple more black families bought, and it was like this black area of the beach. It was an area of the beach that black people could go to. And then these white people, of course, got tired of it. They tried burning the place down. They got the county took the land and said, we're going to build a park. We're taking away your land. And they paid them, 1/4 of what it was worth or whatever, right? So now, that was like 1920 or 1921. So now it's 100 years later, and the county has gone to this family and basically said, we're sorry, we were wrong. This land belongs to your family, and they're trying to figure out the financial reparation. And it's like three things. They're like, we can pay you what it's worth, which is like $70 million, because this is prime beachfront property in LA County. You know what I mean? This is, they said, or we can pay you like basically back rent because they use the land for some kind of lifeguard station or whatever, and or the third one is we rent it from you at market value and we pay, Anyway, obviously people are like, well, why do we have to pay this and that? And there was a representative, a congressman, I can't remember his name, but he's a state congressman. And he said something that I thought was beautiful. He said, listen, if you can have generational wealth, right? These other families who own the land passed it around. But he said, if you can have generational wealth, you can have generational debt. And I think that is like, yes, that is what America owes. America owes a debt to the black families and the black people who built this country. And I don't care if you don't want to admit it's true, but they're the ones who did the labor that built the farms, the plantations, the cotton industry, every industry. When you think about it, it all started from that.
Yeah.
So acknowledge it. Wait, are you kidding me? Like, tell the truth. Listen, slavery was not nice. It wasn't nice. Stop trying to make it like it was, well, they were part of the family and they worked and no, it was a horrible fucking thing. And just like they say, like Germany does not try to clean up the Nazi era. Germany doesn't try to make it like, we had a little disagreement with the Jewish people. Like, no, Germany teaches, no, the Nazis, that was the worst possible thing we could have done and we can't even make up for it. But this is the truth. America needs to acknowledge that to heal it.
Yep.
You have to acknowledge it to heal it. And it's not saying that all white people are evil or any, all of that. No, it's not that. It's acknowledge our history. You want to acknowledge everyone else's history, acknowledge our history and look at that and look at what was done. I got into a discussion with this guy one time who was talking about it. And I said, do you agree that black people are as smart as white people? And it might have killed him to say it, but he was like, yeah, and I said, no, really, think about this. I said, so if things were even, doesn't it make sense that there might have been a black Hilton family or a black, whatever, Arm and Hammer or you know what I mean? Like, look, I'll tell you who showed it. Jay-Z, right?
Oh.
Jay was a dope dealer. And then he went legit, but his business skills as a dope dealer have made him a billionaire. Like, that's what business school Jay-Z went to. Jay-Z didn't go to Harvard or whatever. Jay-Z learned on the streets in the dope game, and then they put him in legitimate business. And it's like, how many other people, given that opportunity, would do that? How many, because intelligence is intelligence. Let me tell you something. Just the fact that they can convert grams to ounces in their head is an amazing. But listen, the only Americans that have mastered the metric system are dope dealers. The rest of us are still thoroughly confused by the metric system. They got it down. They got no problem with it.
I know. You know how often I think about things like I'm Italian, and I'm always like the amount of shit the mafia knew that I don't. But like you always think like, oh, they're Goombas, they're morons, and I'm like, they got a better handle on money than I ever will. You know what I mean? I'm like, God damn. There's a great quote by Stephen Jay Gould, and I'm sure you know what it is, but he basically was saying, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't know the whole thing, but he was basically like, I'm less interested in the weight and the dissection of Einstein's brain than he said, like, then in the near possibility of how many people that could have been an Einstein died in like plantations and, in cotton fields. And that always got to me when I think about that, because, everybody's so obsessed with that kind of history as opposed to, making amends for it too. Like, I never knew about Memorial Day until well after high school.
Right.
And that was something that I was like, how the hell did they not teach us that?
No. And now the big thing is the Tulsa massacre,
Yes.
And Black Wall Street. And it's like, okay, so these same, and again, this is a right wing, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's like, well, we were, and we had a whole economy we were building on our own, and you didn't like that and decided to burn it down and kill everyone. Right. So, it's, and they're like, well, don't teach that. Well, teach that. And so many of us, I'd never heard of the Tulsa massacre when I was in school. Not one mention of that in school. And so now it's talk. And now when the talk comes out, they're like, well, can't we deny it? Can't we clean it up? Can't we, it's like, no, we all saw Watchmen. We know what you did.
I would love to have you. I have a very, very close friend, right, who's Liberian, and we have this conversation. It's funny because we have it's weird because it's like the opposite views, me being white and him being like dark Liberian. And he comes over, he's like, he doesn't feel the same way because he grew up in Liberia, super well educated, came across, has a totally different perspective on, like, he's very much into, he's like, it's a manipulation of the poor more than it's a manipulation of color. And then we start getting into a lot of those conversations where I'm like, systematic racism existed. Like, you can't deny that occurring. But he's like, but and he's not older, but he's not young, right? And his parents never, like, they're back in Liberia at this point. They're not here any longer. They came over for a while. And it's a weird conversation because a lot, like we were saying, like a lot of people where we've had these conversations. He's had run-ins with police strictly due to his melanin, right? But he'll still disagree with me, and he'll be like, no, I think it's an education value, which I get to one side, because he makes very poignant points when we discuss things, because I feel like even me, super undereducated financially. I think most of America is. And they don't teach us to be smart enough to win. Like, but I think that's to the masses. They try to keep us all separated and keep us divided and keep us held down, because if you educate, it's so much more powerful than giving back, you know. But I would love for you and him to dig into it together.
And I appreciate what you're saying, and I think there's two parts to the argument you're saying, right? So Lyndon Johnson said this, and this was I forget what they call it, but it was like the white strategy in the 60s. He said, once you convince poor white people that they have more in common with rich white people than poor black people, they will fight to give you their money. And that's what the Republican Party did. And they convinced listen, a poor white person is much more like a poor black or Latino or anything than they are like a rich white person. But when you get into the systematic racism, and we see it all the time, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, we see it with doctors and college professors and every other. Some cop on the street just sees you as black. And they treat you, they attack you, they do whatever, you know. Then after the fact, they're like, oh my God, you know, oh, I didn't know you were, you know. And it's like, yeah, because all you saw was black. I mean, I've dealt with that, right? I'm the big black guy, right? So, and I tell people, it's like, you don't understand what it's like to try to, when you know you have to put people at ease. It's like, I'm not walking around the street beating people up. We're not Vikings. We're not walking around just I will kill you. Like, no, you know. And I've had comics be like, oh man, if they don't laugh, you could just. It's like, yes, I'm going to threaten the crowd to laugh. Yeah, that's my strategy. Why would I write any material when I could threaten the crowd? You know, and but just the idea that that's in their head. See, that shows where they're coming from. You know what I mean? That's the underlying thing. But with black people who come from other countries, it's different because they have a country. See, that's what's unique about the black people in America. The United States is our country, but we don't have our own country. So when you come from Liberia, Nigeria, the Caribbean or something like that, you do have a country you identify with, right? Like Richard Pryor famously said that when he went to Africa, he was like, there are no niggas in Africa because everyone was black. So that, and he said it blew his mind and it changed his whole view toward that, because he was like, he had never seen a place, you know. And for me, it was like that. You know, when I went to other countries, and me and a friend, we were on a USO tour, and we realized, we were like, you know what? We're the only two black people here, and nobody cares.
Wow.
That never happens in the United States. If you're the only two black people in a public place, you're very aware of it, whether it be out loud or quietly, you know what I mean? You're aware of it. And then that was so yeah, when you deal with other countries and black people from other countries, again, and this is why I say, you know, teaching the 1619 Project and critical race theory, being black in America is a unique experience. And it's not about being a victim. I'm not talking about victimization, although being a victim is part of it, but it's a psychological thing, and it's a psychology on both sides. You know, every racist who's changed, every one of the stories I've heard, it's because of a personal interaction. It was a personal interaction. You know, I had a big problem with that movie Green Book, because it was like, they thought it was a brilliant movie. Why? Because a white guy learned a black guy was human. That was it. That's groundbreaking. That's groundbreaking, that a white guy learned that a black man is cultured and brilliant and you know, quote, well-spoken or whatever. And it's, oh my God, it's like,
and
that
on behalf
shouldn't
of
be groundbreaking news.
And on behalf of Brooklyn Italians, I apologize. That is that was a garbage movie. I have the same like personal interaction. I was trying to talk to family members. I've got, you know, they don't quite get the BLM stuff. It aggravates the shit out of me. And we were talking at one point, and I kind of explained to a couple of them, and I think I got through to some of them. But I was like, I performed in DC. I performed in Baltimore. I performed in black rooms when I started out exclusively. I have performed in wherever it is. And I said, the only time I was ever threatened or felt unsafe was in Ohio, where I was, you know, where some country bumpkin didn't like that I was wearing leather and had long hair and a bit or whatever. And I was like, the only times I've ever been, and there was white, you know, Trump supporters, again, same thing or whatever. I was like, It's the only time I've ever been actively threatened. I had a drunk try to beat the shit out of me at a cafe at one show because he was just, and I was like, think about every instance where I've been whatever. And then they were kind of took pause for like half a second. I'm like, because every place you think is going to be a dangerous area, because they're, my family's like, have a huge family. They're Italian. They're from Brooklyn. They're all that kind of stuff. And they grew up back in the day. So they've just got the worst, perspectives on shit. But I'm like, I literally go into all those places. I'm completely fine. I go anywhere else and I immediately feel like shit. Like, I don't know what this, it's hard to get through to people.
I mean, listen, a hardcore black room, they'll boo you. They won't attack you.
Right.
They'll let you know you ain't funny. They let me know I'm not funny. They don't care about that. But
right. Yeah. But no one comes after you after the show.
Me and Dane Cook were talking. This was last summer when everything was going on BLM, and the Laugh Factory in Long Beach got hit. Like, they broke the windows during a rally and stuff like that. And we were talking,
wow.
and he said something that I thought was really profound. He said, "Man, wouldn't it be great if the world was like a green room?"
Yeah.
Because you think about it, like when comics are in the green room, we give each other shit about everything.
Yep.
But there's no hate behind it. Yes. So you being Italian, we go at it. Me and Bobby Kelly. I love calling Bobby Kelly a Puerto Rican because that's what he looks like. I don't care. He says he's Irish. He's a fat Puerto Rican, and I will never forget. Bobby Kelly once called me brownie. I stopped what I was doing and fell out laughing. I was like, I didn't even like that. I've never heard that. That is a horrible thing, but it's hilarious. But
right.
We laugh about it. We had a thing. Oh my God. When we were doing Last Comic, there was a thing that blew up between Ant and Corey Holcomb. Right. And so they sent the poor woman. She was the corporate person from NBC who has to do the diversity talk.
Oh God.
But she's used to talking to accountants or I don't know, secretaries or whatever. And they sent her in a room of 10 comics to talk about diversity. And we destroyed the poor woman. I don't know if she cried or quit at the end of the day. Me and Gary Goldman, so suppose the Jew, he's like, well, the black guy said this, and we're looking at Kathleen. Well, this broad over here does, and we're going because we're like, are you kidding? We're comics.
Yeah,
there is nothing off limits in this room because we know each other, we love each other, and this is what we do. Heffron's like, I'm just a white guy, I'm not allowed to say anything. And it's like, yeah, shut up, and it was I don't know, that's why when they talk about the cancel culture and this and that, I don't buy into that shit either, because if it's funny, it's funny, and the crowd knows whether or not you mean it. Yeah, that's the thing. The crowd picks up right away on whether or not you mean it, and so I don't buy into that. Yeah, the sexual harassment and all that, and that's changed, man. Society's changed. Sure. I did a show with Dom Herrera hosted, and he said, everyone on the show, he said, I want you to do a bit that you're not allowed to do anymore. And it was great. And then we talk about the bit and why you can't make that joke anymore. But some of it is society has advanced and we're not doing the same thing we were doing back then. But I tell him the other side of it. I said, listen, Don Rickles was still funny.
Yeah.
Don Rickles made fun of me. I was honored. It was one of my great moments in comedy.
Wow.
For Don.
Do you remember
Rickles.
What he said?
Oh yeah, Alonzo. That's good. You took a white man's name, so the cops won't think you did it. And you'll be able to see him this weekend, probably in San Quentin, where he spends Saturday night. Just the cheap, stereotypical, black. But it's Don Rickles, for God's sake. And who was better at it? And I saw Don Rickles make fun of a guy from Tonga. It's like, I don't have any Tongan material ready to go. I got it. When you're ready to specifically make fun of a guy from Tonga, I'm going to go ahead and admire you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, man. The green. That's a good point with the green room stuff. I was at the Comedy Store when they just started to do the roast battles. You know what I mean? Before that got really big or whatever, and we were fucking everybody was there, man. We were slammed into the belly room. It was one of the earliest ones. And there's a kid in a on crutches, a comic that I've never seen before. They must have just been brand new, and another one in a wheelchair. And when I tell you the heinous shit that they said, but I mean, I like all of us dying, the audience,
absolutely.
And I was
absolutely.
like, if people could see this and just understand, it would be all bad. I'm like, why is no one filming? You know what I mean? It's like, it's weird. I love that moment.
Yeah, it's because we get it, and because you know why? Because there's no hate behind it.
Right.
There's no, and then, but I know people who have seen comics. You know, I have a friend who he books these big concerts and stuff, and he, you know, different themes. You know, and this is the best of the '80s, or this is the this, or this is the that. And he was doing something, and he said, "This comic, it was country. It was some kind of country music thing." And he said, "This comic came up here and just started talking the most racist stuff." And he said, "We shut him off. We just shut him off. It was like the blacks this and the Jews that." And he thought he was at the KKK barbecue. And they were like, "No, man, this is not, you know." So again, when you come from that place,
right,
the audience knows it right away, and the audience will shut it down. There was a guy in Montreal a few years ago, some big YouTube Southern comic, who did some racist stuff, and they sent him home. They were like, "Yo, man, this is Canada." And the thing that sucked about it was, for his brand, that was the best thing that could happen, right? Because now he can go home, you know, he's a Trumper and a racist, and say, "See, they shut me down, them liberals, blah blah blah." But it was Canadians were like, "No, man, we don't allow that here." You know, there's a difference between funny and hate. But yeah, you give me a guy on crutches and a guy in a wheelchair, you know, I'm going to stand at the top of the stairs and make fun of both of them, because what are they going to do?
Yeah, and it's crazy, man. And that's the thing. Like, I had this conversation with Pete Dominic at one point, and I felt like we were talking about two different topics about the cancel culture stuff, because that's all. It seems like anytime you turn on a YouTube channel or a YouTube station, every Legion of Skanks, everybody's talking about it in one form or another. And I feel like it's four different conversations, because it's like the people that are concerned about it genuinely are always talking about, you know, like the Harvey Weinstein and the Bill Cosbys and the Kevin Spaceys. And you're just like, okay, but those are felons. So, you know what I mean? Like, those are felonies. Right. That's not cancel culture. And then I feel like the other side of that is comics that are just out of their minds, who think they're getting their freedom of speech taken away. Then I feel like the argument in the middle ground is just irrationality versus rationality, which is like basically just what Twitter is. Twitter is a mentally abusive. They're all people with mental illness, and they're on Twitter, and they have not dealt with it appropriately. So they're just angry about a bunch of random shit, and they have an outlet to take it out on, and they take it out on the wrong people. Like, I felt bad. I don't know if you know when Jessica Kirsten, when she got slammed this past thing, and I was like, I get it. She's fine. She's not necessarily canceled, but the cancel culture part of that is being randomly attacked by unidentified people that you don't know, and you don't know what to do with it, because for an entire week, that type of stuff just happens and it explodes, and you don't know what's going on and who you're going to get dropped by. And that's what I think people get upset about.
I can't tell you how much I love Jessica Kirsten and how funny she is.
Yeah,
she's unbelievable how funny she is. The woman's absolutely disturbed, but she's learned to market it brilliantly. You know,
she's coming on the show too, so we'll tell her you said hi.
Oh, absolutely. But you know, the thing, and this is back when we were doing Last Comic Standing, right? And they had the forums. This is before any social media or anything else. And these people would get on the forums and this and that. And Kathleen Madigan just brilliantly said, "Yeah, angry middle acts." She didn't have 5 minutes for their bullshit. She was like, angry middle acts. You know,
that's hilarious.
Like, yeah. You know, the thing about the cancel culture, it's the hypocrisy, right? So you had them all these crazy right wingers yelling about Dr. Seuss, right? Blah, 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 right? And then they suddenly wanted to cancel baseball. Like, they literally wanted to cancel baseball and Coca-Cola. Like, is there anything more American than having a Coke at a baseball game? But you want to cancel that? You're claiming to be American and you want to cancel baseball?
Yep.
That's why it's all bullshit, right? I wish I could get canceled for the press.
For the press,
you know,
I say that all the time. I'm like, bring it this way.
When you look at the Twitter and and you see, oh, this guy who hates me has 8 followers.
Yes.
And all they're doing is they're trying to piggyback on the popularity of somebody else, and I knew a comic who got into a fight, not with Joe Rogan, with Joe's followers, right?
Oh my God.
And I said to him, you understand they have nothing else to do all day.
Right.
And he said, you know what he said to me? You know what he said? My wife told me the same thing. It's like, yeah, exactly. What the hell are you doing?
Right.
And I love Joe. Joe. I've known Joe for 20 years. Joe will say something that's controversial, but that's Joe saying it. His followers,
right,
they're the cult. He's not the cult. They are.
Right. Yep.
And they decide something, or like you said with the attack on Jess, it's like now it's in a vacuum. It like reinforces itself, right?
Yes.
It just keeps going and it builds its own momentum. And all you can do, as hard as it is, as difficult as it is ignore it.
Yes.
Me and John Henson get on each other when we start arguing with someone in Twitter. We're both like, the hell are you doing? What are you doing?
Right.
Stop it.
Yeah, I have friends who do that to me. One of my friends, we were writing we were writing a pilot. We had a thing that we were pitching or whatever, and we had a due date. And I got distracted online. I started arguing with this lunatic, some woman, doesn't even matter. And she had her profile picture up, and it looked like the girl. It looked like Mara Wilson. And he just sent me this text message in all caps. He goes, "Would you stop arguing with the girl from Matilda and get that shit done?" I was like, "You're right. You're right." I was like, "Fine."
You mentioned Pete Dominic. I love Pete.
Me too. Pete's a great guy.
Love Pete.
It was one of those things where, like, Tom, I think, was on the broadcast at the time too. Pete and I see eye to eye. Yeah. We had great phone conversations together. I've been on his show. We had a good time. And then the cancel culture thing came up, and Pete lost his mind because he was doing his yelly thing. And I was like, we're not arguing over that. Like, we're fine. And he was just, I guess he saw Voss and got upset. I don't know. But like, because Voss had been on earlier. But yeah, it was a weird thing, man. I love Pete too. He's a great guy. Super fun.
And the other thing, when you mentioned Cosby, who I love Bill Cosby. And
sure.
And Bill Cosby, his ego destroyed his career.
Yep.
Just say you were wrong. Say you were wrong. And he couldn't say he was wrong.
Right.
That's what happens with these guys. And that's what destroyed him. And it's a shame because he destroyed his comedy. Like his legacy has been destroyed, and you can't refer to some of the greatest comedy ever, the bits and the this and that. But
right.
But I can't say I feel sorry for him because he did this himself, or a Harvey Weinstein or whatever. It's like, hey, say you're wrong. The first thing you got to do is you got to say you're wrong, and then you go from there.
Mm-hmm.
But when your ego is such that when you start attacking the women that you physically attacked, it's like, no, man, you can't do that. You could say it was a different time. You could say people behaved differently. People said different things, whatever. Yeah. And again, not justifying, but just
I know what you mean.
Accepting it and owning it. But they destroyed their own legacies.
Yeah.
So
and for the most part, you have to be able to talk about that kind of stuff too, because there are nuances to things, not necessarily in Cosby's case. But one of the weirdest videos I remember seeing back then is Cosby is getting interviewed by Larry King, and they're openly, both of them, talking about Spanish Fly. And he's like, you get a girl, whatever. And they're having a blast. They're laughing about it. And that was like in 90 something, right? And I'm like, that's a discussion to have. Why that was perfectly fine on, and then they're talking about back in the 60s and whatever the hell the deal was, because it can't be that those are the only two old men, You know what I mean? Like in Hollywood.
No, well, they had the Playboy Club where they went and did that every night.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
exactly.
the purpose of the club. And I have a friend. He's a retired advertising guy.
Mm-hmm.
And when that show Mad Men was on, he said, "Not even close. He's not even close to the shit we were doing." Yeah, he was like, "Are you kidding? They're just scratching the surface of some of the shit we did because that's how business was done. That's how business was done." And the secretarial pool was a bunch of girls that were just like, "Yeah, this is we plucked from the pool," and all of that, and the drinking on the job. You imagine having a full bar in your office and you're like you're drinking before 10 a.m. and
Dude.
It's fine.
Yeah,
it's absolutely fine.
Somebody told me this, and I could not. I found like one article that mentions it in passing, or it must have been like an essay in a magazine. They said in the 1920s that people could drink and drive, and in emergency situations, they would be like, you get tired on the road. There's a little black box that you keep underneath your car seat, and it would have whiskey. And they would say people who traveled the road and did road stuff, whatever, long drive, would drink and fucking drive. That's wild to me. But that's
I mean, things have changed over time. I mean, like say, listen, cocaine was in Coca-Cola. Now that'll help you drive.
Yeah,
that'll get you a few more miles on the, getting to a road
give
gig,
you wings.
right? Yeah, it's different times. Things change, right? Smoking was encouraged, and how many all the pregnant women smoked in the 60s,
right?
And if you said it's unhealthy, people looked at you like you were insane. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Of course, it's so there's so many
discourse has been weird.
It changes, but now and I think the pendulum swings. So like the Me Too movement. At one point it was like, yeah, well, the pendulum swung the other way, and there are probably some innocent guys who got caught up. But look how many women suffered for so long. If during Me Too and even now, if you talk to women who are in their 60s and 70s, these were the women who went through this shit because they were working back in the 1960s. And I have one friend. She celebrated every time one of these guys goes down because she was a tall, beautiful woman, and she had to put up with that shit for 30 years through her career. And she was like, so every time one of them goes down, she was like, fuck him, take all his money, throw him in jail. And it's like, she was understandably like, I understood her resentment toward it, so.
I did this bit on stage, finally went back on stage after like a year and a half or whatever, did Greenwich Village. But I just tried it out because I noticed a little bit of an hypocrisy thing, but I was like, either you were fucking during the pandemic and you didn't care, or you found an alternative way to do it. And I was like, and it killed me. I said, because in 2016, Louis C.K. got canceled and all this shit taken away for asking women if it was okay to jerk off in front of them. And I was like, cut to a pandemic and 5 years later, and Vice, Vulture, Vox all have articles about how Gen Z is paving the way for FaceTime fucking. And I'm like, that's just masturbating without the eye contact. Like, that's...
Yeah, although I guess... And I don't really... See, I don't know Louis at all. So
no, me neither.
I've been asked, and I don't know how to comment on it. I guess there were some who he didn't ask.
That's what I had, that's what I had heard too, but from people
I don't know. I
me
can't
neither.
say for sure, but from what I understand, that was it. I will say this. I know of comics who've done that,
Yeah.
And the joke I do about it is like, porn is every man's fantasy, and some guys believe it. So there are guys who actually believe, if I start whacking off, she's going to drop what she's doing and jump on it. And it's like, no.
Right. Did you hear his bit about
porn, but no, I haven't.
He's I'm not gonna. I'll paraphrase a little bit of it, but it was in his recent special. I just heard a clip of it that somebody threw up online. But he was basically just like, should we talk about it? Do you want to talk about it? And they're all like, the audience is obviously like, yeah. And he goes, listen. And he goes, if you ever ask someone if you can jerk off in front of them, and they say yes, say, "Are you sure?" And then just don't fucking do it. He goes, walk away, and don't. He goes, look, and he goes, I'm just really good at jerking off, and I like to share it. And he goes, but you know how horrible it is when people know your kink, and he just starts looking at the audience. He's like, you're so fucking lucky. I don't know what your thing is. He's like, Obama knows what my thing is. You know, he was reading and he does this horrible Obama impression where he's like, so it was just kind of, I know that we give like comedians and shit like that a pass because we're charming, we're able to articulate how we're feeling and yada, yada, yada. But I'm the same boat you are. I don't know anything about it. It's the same way with like a Woody Allen situation where they've been going after that guy for years. I don't know him, but I feel like it's one of those things where like, I don't understand if you look at the information provided. I don't think there's enough to give a fuck about it. You know what I mean? At this point?
Well, it's such an insane thing. Like you ended up with your stepdaughter.
Right.
But I don't even know how to get my head around that,
Exactly. Well, the thing that's crazy to me is like I remember listening to Janine Garofalo on a podcast about they were just bringing stuff up, and it was around a couple of years after the Louis thing where they were like, well, Louis just whips his dick out in front of people and blah. And she was like, if you want to talk about it, let's talk about it, but get this like that's not what he does. And she's like, and I resent headlines that accuse him of it. It's almost the same thing with the Woody Allen thing where like when people read about this kind of stuff where it's like from what I understand and from what I've read about it is basically like he was one of those dudes who was just had a girlfriend who had kids and didn't give a fuck about the kids. So he lived on the other side of wherever, came over, I guess they boned, and then she was like, hey, why don't you say hi to him? And he was like, I'm good. And then would like leave. So he had no contact with them. But by the way, I'm not justifying it. It's fucking weird as shit that he wound up married. Like that's the other thing that like you always have to put in place where you're like, hold up, totally fucking weird. But that was it. And then apparently, Mia was like, hey, why don't you fucking hang out with Soon Yi? And she was whatever, 19 or something like that. And then supposedly, they fell in love and he wound up marrying her and leaving Mia. But like I don't like the idea that he was their father figure because he was just a guy. We all know people like that who are like, don't let your kids see me leave the house because God help you. I don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean?
Right. And he's, and then, he's this neurotic, crazy guy. I mean, who knows? It's.
Yeah.
You know what it is? Now we know, right? Because now we have social media, 24/7 news cycle. And so now we know what everybody's doing to the point where a lot of times I don't want to know. I don't need to necessarily know who you're fucking, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated how many NBA players fuck the same Kardashian. That fascinates me.
That's going to be the title of this episode, by the way. That was the greatest line. Not really. But.
There's 260 guys in the NBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know how on occasion, some guy who hooked up with the girl you were with, but in the NBA, everyone knows you were banging this Kardashian. Like it's not your girlfriend, it's your turn.
Right.
And I always say the Kardashians are the only ones who could sit at the NBA All-Star game and be, I did that one. And I did that one, and my sister did that one, and I did that one. I think the younger one, I don't know the names of it. I think it's Kylie Jenner. I think she's the one has an NBA starting five. Like she's literally had, like Blake Griffin and Ben Simmons and a couple. Yeah, I think she's had five. And again, I'm not slut shaming or any of that. Like, listen, you want to fuck brothers in the NBA? Go ahead, have fun. But to me, it's like, this is a small pool. Like, couldn't you, like, if I'm in the NBA and I want a hot woman, maybe I'm going to go away from the Kardashians because I don't want to be in the locker room with this guy that, there's going to be a thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's.
See, and I thought you were going to say, give some of the guys in comedy a chance.
Oh, no. But I will tell you that it's not often I'm caught flat-footed and silenced, but I was doing Adam Carolla's podcast. We were doing it live at the Improv, and I walk on, and I don't know if you know Adam and Adam's way about him and stuff, but he just looked at me and says, shouldn't you be fucking a Kardashian? And I just fell out. I had nothing. I was like, oh man, it was like, it was just the way he said it. It was just so funny in the moment and perfect question. It was like, nah, I didn't make the league. so I don't get one.
Yeah, we were just talking about Adam recently because we were talking about possibly having him on or whatever, and I just didn't know what kind of guy. I was like, I think he's gonna hate me.
No,
So,
Adam's a very interesting guy. He's another guy who I'm friends with, and people have questioned my friendship with Adam, and he's racist. Like, Adam's not a racist. Adam might accidentally say something racist because he doesn't know any better. Because Adam grew up a poor white guy, and he has the attitudes in a lot of things of someone who grew up. I don't know if poor is the right word. Just let's say lower middle class or something.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But he has some of those attitudes that you would develop that way. But here's the thing: you could be friends with someone and not agree on everything.
Yeah, people forget that.
Yeah, and he gives out these awards at the end of the year, and he gave me one for disagreeing with him and crushing his story. It was so funny, but he's an interesting guy. He comes from a blue collar world. He was a carpenter, and he went into radio, and then he figured it out and he made it, and now he's like he's a car collector, he's a dad, he's a bunch of things. In some ways he's a blue collar guy, and in other ways he is a right wing Republican, and he is just who he is. But he's an interesting guy, and he has his voice, right? So if you can get him, I would say get him. He's worth talking to.
That's cool, because I was literally, we were just talking about him, and I literally always think like, oh, maybe this guy's not gonna fucking like me, so let's not. It's the Italian of trying to beat the family argument to the punch. Where you're like, let's just forget about it, and we'll just.
In John's defense, he feels that way about every guest about 10 minutes before we have them on the show. It's okay.
I do. It's a little. Yeah, I'm a little. I got the little.
The first time, and I got to run, guys. I got to bounce
sure.
in a minute, But the first time I did Adam's show, this is when he was still on radio, and we were doing Last Comic, and I had no idea what to expect, right? I'd heard all these different things about Adam, and I go on, and he was so fascinated with the fact that I had been an airplane mechanic, because he was like, he loved that, because he was a carpenter. He's like, man, you used to work, used to like go to work and build shit, and it's like, yeah. And we hit it off on that, and then the friendship expanded from that point into cars and other stuff that we share, and I love this is something I'll tell you about Adam. People will talk about Adam being a racist. Adam produced a movie called Uppity about a guy named Willie T. Ribbs, who was the first black guy to drive in the Indy 500. And Adam made that movie because he was so fat. See the look on your face? Yeah. Adam made that movie because it's such a great story.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, you're going to have a hard time selling me on him being a racist.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. I didn't know that.
Going to have a hard time selling me on that when he made that movie with his money,
Right.
And so.
Wow.
Absolutely. I just want to plug everything you have before you go too. So
yes,
we have coming up on Saturday, June 12th. You're going to be on NPR's Wait, Don't Tell Me, right? Early in the day. And then it's going to be followed by that same day on June 12th. You're going to be at the Genesee Theater in Waukegan, Illinois, Saturday, June 12th at 6 p.m. And then also live at the Laugh Factory in Vegas, July 1st through 4th, for Independence Day. So,
back to Vegas. I haven't been to Vegas yet. So it'll be interesting to see what, I hear all kind of things, but it's Vegas, so they're going to be rolling again,
Absolutely. And before you go, man, let me just ask you quick. Always ask people who are on, if you had one piece of advice to give yourself when you were younger, something that you know now, what would it be?
Learn publicity and marketing. Man, I wish I'd learned that.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Great advice.
Me and Heffron joke about this. John Heffron, who I love, old friend. And we're like, we timed it perfectly to wind up in the middle, because we were too young for the Johnny Carson 80s late night era. And then we were too old when social media hit. We kind of missed on both sides. But I wish I had learned more about self-promotion. I've watched people, I watched Fluffy start. I remember when he first bounced on stage in East LA, and we were like, this is a giant 10-year-old in shorts and he's hilarious. But he turned out to be brilliant in marketing himself and built this whole thing. Joe Coy did the same thing. I watched Joe Coy do it. I watched Dane Cook do it. I was friends with Dane, and I was like, you couldn't give me a tip? You couldn't have mentioned something? You couldn't have said, hey, there's this MySpace thing you should look into? You know? And like, I got nothing but love for all of them because they figured it out, and good for them. But I would tell me 20 years ago, learn marketing, because I had this thing of thinking that if you're the funniest, the word gets out, and it doesn't. You got to put the word out.
Yep. Wow, that's great, man. That's solid advice. And thank you for coming on here. I really appreciate it. I hope we get to work together again soon. You're one of my favorite comics, man. You're fucking hilarious and always insightful on stage. So it's just masterful watching you, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll cross paths. You know, the world's opening up again. I even heard, it's funny, you mentioned Bananas in Poughkeepsie. I got hit up by somebody who they bought that, and they're going to reopen it under another name.
I heard that too, man.
Yeah, because it had fallen so far down when it shut down. So maybe we'll hit that together.
One of my that'd be great, man. One of my favorite things, I opened for you at the Bananas in Hasbrook Heights. The first time I worked with you, first time I met you, and you're like, "Hey, man, let's go. I'll buy you coffee." And we're walking on the highway, down to that McDonald's or whatever.
Yeah.
You are, sitting down. You are so much taller than me. Like, it's almost like I'm not technically human size, but I just remember walking down the highway and like literally seeing kind of like looking like I was your little organ grinder monkey. Like, it was just like I should have been holding your hand across that. Ridiculous, but I always crack up. Oh, and I was talking to Liz Mealy about that, and she loves you, by the way.
Oh, I love Liz.
Yes,
Liz is the best. Yeah.
And can I also, before you go, just say what a badass you are? You drive a motorcycle almost basically almost everywhere, right? Like,
yeah, I love riding. Riding, and that's
my friends always make fun of me because I have all of the elements of somebody. I've always wanted to drive a motorcycle, by the way. And then my friends are like, you will kill yourself. But I hate that. But like, I love leather. Like, I've always worn leather jackets, like high school and up, just like it, like the look. And, they always make fun of me because of the hair thing or whatever. And they're like, why don't you have a motorcycle? You're the only one. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm in Jersey. There's no fucking,
The first piece of advice I'm going to give you is you don't drive a motorcycle, you ride one. Honestly, no, people say that all the time. It's like, no, you don't drive a motorcycle, you ride one. And it's funny you mentioned Liz because I took Liz on her first motorcycle ride. It was one of those things like she always wanted to do.
Right.
And so I took her for a ride and we had a blast. It was fun. Yeah, Liz is great.
Awesome. Yeah.
I think what John's getting to is he wants you to get a sidecar, so when you go to the gig together, he can just ride in the sidecar with you.
I'll do it, man. I'll do whatever you want. I'll carry the cymbals. I'll get a tail. Whatever you need. I'm here for you. Seriously, I love you, dude. Thanks for coming on so much. I'm glad you're going back out on the road, and I hope we get together soon.
This was great, guys. Great to see you. Take care. All the best. And yeah, man, let's keep talking, right? That's all we can do, man. Keep talking and hope someone's listening.
Absolutely, man. Love that. Good luck in your new show, dude.
Man. We'll definitely be
Take care.
KBLA 1580. We're looking forward to it. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, peace.
Thanks.
Dystopia tonight.